Okay, so I need to tell you something about Leo energy, and honestly, once you understand this, you're going to see it everywhere. There's something about Leo that makes people completely hooked, like genuinely unable to look away. And it's not what most people think it is. It's not about being loud or dramatic or attention-seeking. Those are just surface-level stereotypes that completely miss what's actually happening. Here's what I've realized, and this was a huge moment for me when I finally understood it. When you're in the presence of someone with strong Leo energy, whether that's their sun, moon, or rising, there's this thing that happens where you suddenly feel more alive. Does that resonate? It's like they're radiating this frequency that wakes something up inside you. Something you didn't even know was asleep. And if you're a Leo watching this, you might be thinking, wait, I don't feel that powerful, or I don't see myself that way. But stay with me, because what I'm about to explain is going to completely shift how you understand your own impact on others. Because the thing that makes people obsessed with Leo isn't something you do. It's something you are. It's baked into the core of your energetic signature. Now, before we get into the specific mechanism of how this works, I need to set some context, because Leo is ruled by the sun, and it's not just a random astrological detail. That's everything. Think about what the sun actually does in our solar system. Every single planet orbits around it. It's the center of gravity, the source of light, the thing that makes life possible on Earth. Without the sun, nothing grows. Nothing thrives. Everything goes dark and cold. And when someone is born with the sun as their ruling planet, they carry that same energetic blueprint. They become a center of gravity in social situations. Not because they're trying to be, but because that's just how their energy naturally functions. People orbit around them. Conversations flow toward them. Attention gravitates in their direction. And here's what's wild. Most Leos don't even realize they're doing this. I've talked to so many Leos who are genuinely confused about why people always seem to focus on them. Why they get blamed when things go wrong in a group, or why they're expected to lead even when they didn't volunteer for it. And it's because energetically they're the sun in the room. Everything revolves around them, whether they want it to or not. But here's where it gets really interesting, and this is the part that most astrology content completely misses. The reason people become hooked on Leo isn't because Leo is trying to get attention. It's because Leo makes other people feel seen. Let me say that again, because this is crucial. Leo's superpower isn't that they shine. It's that they make you feel like you're shining too. Think about the actual sun for a second. When sunlight hits you, what happens? You become visible. Colors appear. Shadows form. You can suddenly see yourself. See your surroundings. See where you're going. The sun doesn't just illuminate itself. It illuminates everything around it. And that's exactly what Leo energy does to people. When you're talking to someone with strong Leo placement, they have this way of making you feel like you're the most interesting person in the world. They laugh at your jokes with their whole body. They ask follow-up questions that show they're actually listening. They remember details about your life that you mentioned weeks ago. They celebrate your wins like they're their own victories. And in those moments you feel seen in a way that's actually pretty rare. Most people are so caught up in their own internal narrative that they're only half present in conversations. They're thinking about what they're going to say next, or checking their phone, or mentally planning their day. But Leo, when they're engaged with you, they're fully there. And that full presence, that complete attention, it's intoxicating. It makes you want more of it. It makes you want to be around them again, because being around them makes you feel more alive, more real, more like yourself. And this is where people get Leo completely wrong. They think Leo needs attention because they're insecure, or because they have a big ego. But that's not it at all. Leo gives attention so generously that people naturally want to give it back. It's reciprocal. It's a feedback loop. Leo shines their light on you. You feel amazing. So you want to shine your light back on them. And that exchange creates this magnetic pull that's really hard to break. I've seen this play out so many times. You'll be at a party or a work event, and there's always that one person who everyone seems to gravitate toward. The conversation is louder around them. People are laughing more. There's this energy, this warmth. And 9 times out of 10 when you check their chart, they've got significant Leo placements. And it's not because they walked in demanding attention. It's because they walked in radiating warmth, and people are drawn to warmth like moths to a flame. Now here's something else that makes Leo absolutely magnetic, and this is going to sound counterintuitive, but it's their vulnerability. Stay with me on this because I know Leo has a reputation for being proud and regal and not showing weakness. But that's actually a misunderstanding of how Leo operates at their highest expression. Leo is a fixed fire sign, which means their fire doesn't flicker. It burns steady. And when you have that kind of stable internal flame, you can actually afford to be vulnerable because you're not afraid it's going to get extinguished. You're not protecting a fragile ego. You're operating from a place of such core self-worth that you can admit when you're wrong. You can laugh at yourself. You can show your messy human side without it threatening your sense of identity. And people find that incredibly disarming. Because most of us are walking around with these carefully constructed personas, these masks we wear to protect ourselves from judgment or rejection. But Leo at their best doesn't wear a mask. They show up as themselves, fully and unapologetically, and that authenticity gives other people permission to do the same. I remember talking to a Leo friend of mine about this, and she said something that really stuck with me. She said, when I walk into a room, I'm not thinking about how I'm being perceived. I'm thinking about how I can make the people in that room feel good. And that's the difference. That's the secret. Leo's focus isn't actually on themselves. It's on creating an experience, an atmosphere, a feeling. They want everyone to have a good time. They want the energy to be high. They want people to feel celebrated and appreciated. And when you're around someone who's operating from that place of generosity, of course you're going to be hooked. Of course you're going to want more of that. Because how often do you encounter someone who genuinely wants you to shine, who isn't threatened by your success, who celebrates you without any hidden agenda or jealousy? That's rare, that's precious, and that's what Leo offers. Now let's talk about the leadership piece, because this is another huge part of why people become obsessed with Leo energy. Leo is a natural-born leader, but not in the way you might think. They're not leading through for authority or telling people what to do. They're leading through inspiration. They're leading by example. They're showing you what's possible when you fully own who you are. Think about the great leaders throughout history. The ones people actually wanted to follow. Not because they had to, but because they were inspired to. Those leaders had a vision. They had passion. They had this unshakable belief in what they were doing. And that's Leo energy. When Leo believes in something, they believe in it with their whole chest. There's no half-hearted commitment. There's no hedging their bets. They go all in. And that level of conviction is magnetic because most people are walking around unsure, second-guessing themselves, playing it safe. But when you encounter someone who knows what they want and isn't afraid to go after it, something in you wakes up. You start thinking, maybe I could do that too. Maybe I could be that bold. Maybe I could trust myself that much. And suddenly you're not just attracted to them. You're inspired by them. You want to be around them because their energy elevates yours. This is why Leo often ends up in leadership positions, even when they're not actively seeking them out. People naturally look to them for direction because Leo has this quality of certainty, of confidence, of I've got this. And in a world that feels increasingly chaotic and uncertain, that kind of steady flame is incredibly reassuring. But here's where it gets even more interesting. Leo's magnetism isn't just about what they give to others. It's also about what they refuse to tolerate. Leo has very clear boundaries around respect and loyalty. They know their worth and they're not willing to compromise on it. And paradoxically, that makes people respect them more and want their approval more. When someone is too available, too eager to please, too willing to bend themselves into whatever shape you need, it actually decreases their value in your eyes. But when someone has standards, when they expect to be treated well, when they'll walk away from situations that don't honor them, that creates a kind of magnetic tension. You want to prove yourself worthy of their time and attention. Leo doesn't chase. Leo doesn't beg. Leo doesn't diminish themselves to make others comfortable. And that refusal to play small, that insistence on being treated with dignity, it makes people work harder to stay in their orbit. It's not manipulation. It's just a natural consequence of someone who genuinely values themselves. I've noticed this pattern over and over again. The Leos who are most magnetic aren't the ones trying to get everyone to like them. They're the ones who are completely comfortable with the fact that not everyone will. They're selective about who gets access to them. They protect their energy. They don't waste time on people who don't appreciate them. And that selectivity, that discernment, it makes being chosen by them feel special. When a Leo decides you're worth their time and energy and loyalty, you feel it. You feel seen. You feel valued. You feel like you matter. And once you've experienced that level of recognition from someone who doesn't give it freely, you're hooked. You want to keep earning it. You want to stay in that warm spotlight of their attention. Now let's talk about the creative piece, because this is absolutely central to Leo's magnetism. Leo is associated with the 5th house in astrology, which governs creativity, self-expression, pleasure, and play. And Leo approaches life with this childlike sense of wonder and joy that's incredibly infectious. They don't take themselves too seriously. They're willing to be silly, to play, to experiment, to try things just for the fun of it. And when you're around someone who gives themselves permission to enjoy life that freely, it makes you want to loosen up too. It makes you remember that life isn't just about productivity and responsibility and checking boxes. It's also about pleasure and expression and doing things that make you feel alive. I've watched this happen so many times. You'll be in a group setting and everyone's kind of stiff, kind of formal, kind of stuck in their heads. And then the Leo in the room will crack a joke or suggest something spontaneous or just start dancing for no reason. And suddenly the whole energy shifts. People relax. They laugh. They start having actual fun instead of just going through the motions. And that ability to shift the energy in a room, to give people permission to enjoy themselves, that's a form of leadership that's incredibly powerful. Leo understands something that most people forget, which is that joy is contagious. When you're genuinely enjoying yourself, when you're fully present in the moment, when you're expressing yourself without self-consciousness, other people feel that and they want to join you in that state. It's like Leo creates this bubble of permission where the normal rules don't apply, where you can be more playful, more expressive, more yourself. And this connects to something else that makes Leo absolutely magnetic, which is their relationship with performance. Now I know that word performance can sound negative, like it's fake or inauthentic. But that's not what I mean. What I mean is that Leo understands that life is theater. They understand that how you show up matters. That presentation matters. That creating an experience for people matters. Think about the difference between someone who just exists in a space versus someone who enters a space. Leo enters. They make an entrance. Not because they're trying to be dramatic, but because they're fully committed to the moment. They've thought about what they're wearing. They've considered the energy they want to bring. They're showing up as the best version of themselves because they respect the people they're about to interact with enough to give them their A game. And people respond to that level of innately. When someone clearly cares about the experience they're creating, when they've put thought and energy into how they're showing up, it makes you feel valued. It makes you feel like this moment matters to them, which makes it matter more to you. I had a Leo colleague once who would do this thing before big meetings where she'd take 5 minutes to herself, put on her favorite playlist, do a little pep talk in the mirror, and then walk into that meeting room like she owned it. And every single time, the energy in the room would shift when she entered. People would sit up straighter. They'd pay more attention. The meeting would suddenly feel more important, more exciting, more alive. And it wasn't because she was being fake or putting on a show. It was because she understood that her energy set the tone for everyone else. And she took that responsibility seriously. This is something a lot of people don't understand about Leo. They think Leo's focus on presentation is vanity or superficially. But it's actually the opposite. It's a form of generosity. It's saying, I care enough about this interaction to show up fully. I care enough about you to give you the best version of myself. And when someone operates from that place of care and innately, of course you're going to be drawn to them. Now let's talk about loyalty, because this is absolutely crucial to understanding why people become so deeply attached to Leo energy. When Leo commits to you, when they decide you're part of their inner circle, their loyalty is fierce and unwavering. They will defend you, right? Support you, celebrate you, and stand by you in ways that are actually pretty rare in modern relationships. Leo doesn't do casual connections. They don't do surface-level friendships. When they invest in someone, they invest fully. And in a world where so many relationships feel transactional or conditional, where people are constantly hedging their bets and keeping their options open, Leo's all-in approach is incredibly powerful. I've seen this play out in so many ways. The Leo friend who will drop everything to help you move apartments. The Leo partner who will defend you to their family even when it's uncomfortable. The Leo colleague who will champion your ideas in meetings and make sure you get credit for your work. They're not doing these things because they expect something in return. They're doing them because that's what loyalty means to them. When you're theirs, and they take that bond seriously. And here's what makes this even more magnetic. Leo's loyalty isn't blind. They're not loyal to people who betray them or disrespect them or take advantage of their generosity. They have very clear standards for who deserves their loyalty, and if you violate those standards, they will cut you off without hesitation. But if you honor the relationship, if you show up for them the way they show up for you, their loyalty is unshakable. This creates a really interesting dynamic where being in Leo's inner circle feels like a privilege. It feels like you've been chosen, like you've earned something valuable. And once you've experienced that level of ride or die loyalty, it's really hard to walk away from. You become hooked not just on the person, but on the feeling of being that deeply valued and protected. There's also something about Leo's relationship with generosity that makes them incredibly magnetic. Leo is ruled by the sun. And just like the sun gives light and warmth to everything in the solar system without asking for anything in return, Leo gives free. They're generous with their time, their energy, their resources, their praise, their affection. They don't keep score. They don't operate from a place of scarcity or fear that there's not enough to go around. I remember reading somewhere that the sun doesn't worry about running out of light. It just shines. And that's exactly how Leo operates. They don't hoard their warmth or ration their attention. They give it abundantly because that's their nature. And when you're on the receiving end of that kind of generosity, it's overwhelming in the best possible way. Think about how rare it is to encounter someone who genuinely wants to give to you without keeping track of what they're owed. Most relationships have this underlying ledger, this mental accounting of who did what for whom. But Leo doesn't operate that way. They give because giving feels good to them. They celebrate your success because your joy brings them joy. They support your dreams because they genuinely want to see you win. And this generosity extends to how they see people. Leo has this incredible ability to see the best in others, to recognize potential that people don't even see in themselves. They're like talent scouts for human potential. They'll look at you and see not just who you are right now, but who you could become. And then they'll believe in that version of you so fiercely that you start believing in it too. I've had Leo friends tell me things like, I see you running your own company one day, or I can totally picture you on stage performing, when I was nowhere near ready to see those things in myself. But their belief was so genuine, so unwavering, that it planted a seed. It made me think maybe they're right. Maybe I could do that. And years later, when I actually did those things, I realized their vision had been guiding me all along. This is a form of magic that Leo possesses. They don't just see you as you are. They see you as you could be. And by holding that vision for you, by believing in your potential even when you don't, they actually help call that version of you into existence. That's not just magnetic. That's transformative. That's the kind of impact that changes lives. Now let's talk about passion, because this is absolutely central to Leo's magnetism. Leo doesn't do anything halfway. When they're interested in something, they're obsessed with it. When they love something, they love it with their whole heart. When they commit to something, they go all in. And that level of passion, That intensity of engagement with life, it's incredibly attractive. Most people are walking around in this state of mild interest or moderate enthusiasm. They like things but they don't love things. They're interested but not obsessed. They're engaged but not consumed. But Leo doesn't know how to operate at that frequency. For them, it's all or nothing. And when you encounter someone who feels things that deeply, who cares that much, who's that alive, it wakes something up in you. I've noticed this pattern where people who spend time around Leo start becoming more passionate themselves. It's like Leo's intensity is contagious. You start caring more about your own interests. You start pursuing your own goals with more fire. You start allowing yourself to feel things more deeply instead of keeping everything at arm's length. Leo gives you permission to be passionate, to be intense, to care deeply about things even if other people think you're being too much. And this connects to something else that makes Leo magnetic, which is their relationship with courage. Leo is brave in a way that most people aren't. They're willing to take risks, to put themselves out there, to fail publicly, to be vulnerable, to go after what they want even when success isn't guaranteed. And that courage is inspiring. Think about how much of life is governed by fear. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of rejection, fear of looking stupid, fear of being too much or not enough. Most people make decisions based on avoiding these fears rather than pursuing what they actually want. But Leo operates differently. They feel the fear and they do it anyway. They'd rather try and fail than never try at all. They'd rather be criticized for being themselves than praised for being someone they're not. I've watched Leos walk into rooms where they don't know anyone and start conversations with complete strangers. I've seen them quit stable jobs to pursue creative dreams that everyone told them were unrealistic. I've watched them end relationships that looked perfect from the outside because something inside them knew it wasn't right. And every single time, their courage makes everyone around them question their own limitations. When you see someone living that boldly, that authentically, that courageously, it forces you to confront your own fears. It makes you ask yourself, why am I playing it so safe? Why am I letting fear make my decisions? Why am I not going after what I really want? And sometimes that's uncomfortable, but it's also incredibly valuable. Leo's courage challenges you to be braver. And that challenge, that invitation to step into your own power, that's part of what makes them so magnetic. There's also something about Leo's relationship with joy that sets them apart. Leo genuinely enjoys life. They take pleasure in simple things. They celebrate small wins. They find reasons to be happy even when circumstances aren't perfect. And in a culture that's so focused on productivity and achievement and always striving for more, Leo's ability to just enjoy the moment is refreshing. I've noticed that Leos are often the ones suggesting spontaneous adventures or impromptu celebrations or just doing something fun for no reason. They don't need a special occasion to pop champagne or throw a party or take a day off to go to the beach. They understand that life is happening right now, not someday in the future when everything is perfect. And that presence, that ability to find joy in the present moment, it's contagious. When you're around someone who's genuinely enjoying themselves, who's finding pleasure in the experience, who's celebrating life just because they're alive, it makes you want to do the same. It makes you realize how much time you spend waiting for permission to be happy, waiting for the right circumstances, waiting for everything to be perfect. But Leo doesn't wait. Leo creates joy right now, in this moment, with what's available. And that's a skill. That's a practice. That's a way of being that most people have forgotten how to access. This is why people become addicted to Leo's energy. Because being around them reminds you what it feels like to be fully alive. It reminds you that life can be fun, that you can enjoy yourself, that you don't have to take everything so seriously all the time. And once you've tasted that freedom, that joy, that alevins, you want more of it. You want to be around the person who makes you feel that way. Now let's talk about something that I think is the most misunderstood aspect of Leo's magnetism, and this is their relationship with vulnerability and emotional depth. Because here's what people get wrong about Leo. They think because Leo is associated with pride and confidence and this regal energy that they're somehow shallow or that they don't feel things deeply. But that couldn't be further from the truth. Leo feels everything intensely. Remember, this is a fire sign, and fire doesn't just burn on the surface. It burns all the way through. When Leo loves, they love with a depth that can be almost overwhelming. When they're hurt, they feel it in their bones. When they're passionate about something, it consumes them completely. The difference is that Leo has learned how to metabolize these intense emotions without letting them destroy them. And here's where the real magic happens. Because Leo has done the work of integrating their own emotional intensity, they create space for other people to feel deeply too. They're not afraid of your emotions. They're not going to tell you to calm down or stop being so dramatic or get over it. They understand that feeling things deeply is part of being fully alive, and they honor that in themselves and in others. I've had conversations with Leos where I've shared things I was afraid to tell anyone else. Things I thought were too much or too intense or too vulnerable. And instead of pulling away or making me feel like I was being excessive, they leaned in. They matched my intensity. They said, yes, I get it. I feel that too. And in those moments, I felt less alone than I'd ever felt in my life. This is what people don't understand about Leo's magnetism. It's not just that they shine brightly. It's that they create a space where you feel safe enough to shine to. They're not threatened by your light because they're so secure in their own. They're not afraid of your darkness because they've made peace with their own. And that combination of confidence and emotional availability, that's incredibly rare and incredibly powerful. There's also something about Leo's relationship with authenticity that makes them magnetic in a way that's hard to articulate but impossible to ignore. Leo at their highest expression is completely themselves. Unapologetically and without reservation. They're not trying to fit into anyone else's idea of who they should be. They're not performing a version of themselves that they think will be more acceptable or more likable. They're just fully, completely, authentically themselves. And in a world where so many people are wearing masks, where everyone's curating their image in their personal brand and trying to be whoever they think they need to be to get ahead, Leo's authenticity is like a breath of fresh air. It's permission. It's proof that you can be yourself and not only survive but thrive. That you can take up space and be loud and be exactly who you are without apologizing for it. I remember talking to a Leo once who said something that really stuck with me. She said, I spent so many years trying to be less, trying to tone myself down, trying to make myself smaller so other people would be more comfortable. And then one day I just decided I was done with that. I decided that if people couldn't handle me at my full brightness, that was their problem, not mine. And the moment I made that decision, everything changed. The right people started showing up. The right opportunities started appearing. My whole life got better because I stopped trying to be anything other than exactly who I am. And that's the thing about Leo energy. When you're around someone who's that committed to their own authenticity, it challenges you to examine your own relationship with self-expression. It makes you ask yourself, where am I holding back? Where am I playing small? Where am I pretending to be someone I'm not because I'm afraid of what people will think? And those questions, uncomfortable as they might be, they're the beginning of real transformation. Leo's magnetism isn't just about attraction. It's about activation. They activate something in you that might have been dormant or suppressed or forgotten. They remind you of who you really are underneath all the conditioning and the fear and the need to be acceptable. And once that part of you wakes up, once you remember what it feels like to be fully yourself, you can't go back to sleep. You can't go back to playing small. And that's why people become so deeply attached to Leo energy. Because Leo doesn't just make you feel good in the moment. They change you fundamentally. Now let's talk about Leo's relationship with celebration, because this is absolutely crucial to understanding their magnetism. Leo knows how to celebrate. They know how to mark moments, to honor achievements, to make people feel special. And this isn't just about throwing parties or making grand gestures, though they're certainly good at that too. It's about their fundamental belief that life's victories, big and small, deserve to be acknowledged and celebrated. Most people are so focused on what's next, on the next goal, the next milestone, the next thing they need to achieve, that they forget to actually enjoy what they've already accomplished. But Leo doesn't operate that way. When you achieve something, Leo is the first person to pop the champagne. When you hit a milestone, Leo is organizing the celebration. When you do something brave or difficult or meaningful, Leo is there making sure you know how proud they are of you. And this matters more than you might think. Because so many of us are walking around starving for recognition, for acknowledgement, for someone to see our efforts and say, yes, I see what you did there, and it matters. Leo provides that. They're generous with their praise. They're enthusiastic in their celebration of others. They make you feel like your wins are their wins, like your success brings them genuine joy. I've watched this happen so many times. Someone will accomplish something they've been working toward for months or years, and most people will give them a quick congratulations and move on. But Leo will make it an event. They'll gather people together. They'll make a toast. They'll tell everyone in the room about what this person accomplished and why it matters. They'll make sure that person feels truly celebrated, truly seen, truly honored for what they've achieved. And when you've experienced that level of celebration from someone, when someone has made you feel that valued and that special, of course you're going to want more of that. Of course you're going to be drawn back to them. Because they're providing something that most people are desperately craving, but rarely receiving. Genuine, enthusiastic celebration of who they are and what they've accomplished. There's also something about Leo's relationship with generosity of spirit that sets them apart. And I'm not just talking about material generosity, though Leos are oft ungenerous with their resources too. I'm talking about this quality of bigness, of expanse in Vins, of abundance mentality that Leo embodies. Leo doesn't operate from scarcity. They don't think there's only so much success or love or recognition to go around. They genuinely believe there's enough for everyone, and they want everyone to win. This is why Leo can celebrate other people's success without feeling threatened by it. This is why they can champion someone else's dreams without worrying that it takes away from their own. This is why they can be genuinely happy when good things happen to people around them. Because they're not operating from a place of competition or comparison. They're operating from a place of abundance. And when you're around someone who has that kind of expansive energy, who genuinely wants you to succeed, who's rooting for you without any hidden agenda or jealousy, it's transformative. It makes you realize how much of your life you've spent in an environment where people were competing with you or threatened by you or secretly hoping you'd fail. And once you've experienced what it's like to be around someone who genuinely wants you to shine, you never want to go back to those toxic dynamics. I think this is one of the reasons why people become so loyal to Leos once they're in their inner circle. Because Leo creates this environment of mutual celebration and support where everyone's success is everyone's success. Where there's no competition, only collaboration. Where everyone's encouraged to be their biggest, brightest, most authentic self. And that kind of environment is so rare and so valuable that once you've found it, you hold on to it with everything you've got. Now here's something else that makes Leo absolutely magnetic. And this is their relationship with play and pleasure. Leo understands something that most adults have forgotten, which is that play isn't frivolous. It's essential. That pleasure isn't selfish. It's necessary. That joy isn't something you earn after you've checked all the boxes. It's something you create in the midst of life. Leo approaches life with this quality of playfulness that's incredibly infectious. They're willing to be silly. They're willing to look foolish. They're willing to try things just for the fun of it without needing them to be productive or meaningful or leading somewhere. They understand that sometimes the point is just to enjoy yourself, to laugh, to feel alive. And when you're around someone who gives themselves that kind of permission, it makes you want to give yourself permission to. It makes you realize how much of your life you've spent being serious and responsible and productive, and how little time you've spent just enjoying yourself. Leo reminds you that life is supposed to be fun, that you're allowed to play, that pleasure is your birthright, not something you have to earn. I've watched Leos transform entire group dynamics just by introducing an element of play. Everyone's sitting around being polite and formal and a little bit stiff. And then Leo suggests something spontaneous or starts a game or just does something unexpected and silly. And suddenly everyone relaxes. The energy shifts. People start laughing. They start being more themselves. And that ability to shift the energy from serious to playful, from formal to fun, that's a form of leadership that's incredibly valuable. This connects to something else about Leo's magnetism, which is their relationship with the present moment. Leo is incredibly present. When they're with you, they're really with you. They're not checking their phone every 5 minutes or thinking about what they need to do later or mentally planning their next move. They're here reason for that. Now, fully engaged with whatever's happening in this moment. And that quality of presence is so rare in modern life that when you encounter it, it's almost shocking. Most people are so distracted, so scattered, so caught up in their own heads that they're never fully anywhere. But Leo has this ability to be completely here, completely engaged, completely alive to what's happening right now. And when you're on the receiving end of that kind of attention, that kind of presence, it makes you feel more real, more alive, more like you matter. I think this is one of the reasons why conversations with Leos feel so satisfying. Because they're actually listening. They're not just waiting for their turn to talk. They're not formulating their response while you're still speaking. They're genuinely interested in what you're saying, genuinely curious about your perspective, genuinely present with you in the conversation. And that level of engagement, that quality of attention, it's incredibly validating. Now let's talk about something that I think is the ultimate key to Leo's magnetism. And this is their relationship with self-love. Because here's what I've realized. Leo's ability to make other people feel good about themselves comes from the fact that they genuinely feel good about themselves. Their confidence isn't fake or performative or compensating for insecurity. It's real. It's rooted in genuine self-love and self-acceptance. And this is crucial because you can't give what you don't have. You can't make other people feel valued if you don't value yourself. You can't make other people feel seen if you're not willing to see yourself. You can't celebrate other people if you're not willing to celebrate yourself. Leo understands this. They've done the work of learning to love themselves, to accept themselves, to be proud of who they are. And because they've done that work, they have an overflow of love and acceptance and celebration to give to others. This is why Leo's warmth feels so genuine. It's not strategic. It's not manipulative. It's not coming from a place of need or insecurity. It's coming from a place of abundance. They have so much love for themselves that it naturally spills over onto everyone around them. And when you're on the receiving end of that kind of genuine warmth, that kind of authentic appreciation, you can feel the difference. You can feel that it's real. I've noticed that people who struggle with self-love are often the most drawn to Leo energy. Because being around Leo gives them a glimpse of what it would feel like to actually like themselves. To be proud of who they are. To take up space without apologizing for it. Leo models a different way of being. A way of moving through the world with confidence and joy and self-acceptance. And for people who've spent their whole lives feeling like they're not enough, seeing someone who genuinely believes they are enough, that's revolutionary. This is why Leo's impact goes so much deeper than just making people feel good in the moment. They're actually teaching people, through their example, how to love themselves. They're showing people that it's possible to be confident without being arrogant, to be proud without being conceited, to take up space without being selfish. They're demonstrating that self-love isn't narcissism. It's the foundation for everything else. And here's what makes this even more powerful. When you spend time around someone who genuinely loves themselves, it gives you permission to love yourself too. It breaks down the conditioning that tells you that self-love is selfish, or that you need to be humble, or that you should always put others first. Leo's example shows you that actually, loving yourself is the most generous thing you can do. Because when you love yourself, you have so much more to give to others. So when we talk about what makes Leo magnetic, what makes people hooked and speechless, It all comes back to this. Leo has mastered the art of being fully themselves, of loving themselves completely, of showing up with their whole heart, and in doing so, they create space for everyone around them to do the same. They don't just shine their own light, they illuminate the path for others to find their light too. This is why people become obsessed with Leo energy. Not because Leo is trying to make them obsessed, but because Leo offers something that's incredibly rare and incredibly valuable. They offer genuine warmth, authentic celebration, fierce loyalty, generous spirit, playful joy, and most importantly, they offer you a reflection of your own potential. They see the best in you and they believe in it so completely that you start believing in it too. And once you've experienced what it's like to be truly seen, truly celebrated, truly valued by someone who operates from that place of abundance and self-love, you're changed. You can't go back to settling for less. You can't go back to relationships where you're not fully appreciated. You can't go back to hiding your light or playing small or apologizing for who you are. Leo's impact is permanent because they don't just make you feel good. They wake you up to who you really are and what you're really capable of. So if you're a Leo watching this and you've ever wondered why people seem so drawn to you, why they orbit around you, why they become so attached to your energy, this is why. It's not because you're demanding attention or being dramatic or trying to be the center of everything. It's because you're offering something that most people are desperately craving but rarely finding. You're offering genuine warmth, authentic connection, fierce loyalty, and the permission to be fully, unapologetically themselves. And if you're not a Leo but you found yourself hooked on Leo energy, now you understand why. It's not weakness or neediness or dependence. It's a natural response to being in the presence of someone who makes you feel more alive, more seen, more valued, more yourself. That's not something to be ashamed of. That's something to be grateful for. Because people who have that kind of impact on us, who wake us up to our own potential and remind us what it feels like to be fully alive, those people are rare and precious. The truth is, Leo's magnetism isn't a trick or a technique or something they're doing to manipulate people. It's simply the natural result of someone who has learned to love themselves completely and shine their light without apology. And in a world where so many people